Okay. Oh, look. I'll have a clean mustache after drinking all this coffee. And you must have to clean your mustache when you eat, right? You have a nice bushy mustache after. Someone once came into a Verbrengen when Rav Mendel Futterfass was Verbrengen, and he had trimmed his mustache so it wasn't hanging over his lip. Now you can do that. So Rav Mendel said, "Why did you trim your mustache?" So it was getting in the way when I was eating. So he said, "I don't understand you. God gives you this great help in iskafia, in not eating everything you want because you have to think twice because your mustache is in the way. And you cut it off." So, okay. Okay, so we started this fascinating discussion about Moshiach being a shaliach. Moshiach is all about the yichud, the unity of man, ban, of transcendent reality and immanent reality, godliness and physicality, neshama and guf. In the story of Yitzhak and Rivka, it's neshama and guf. And the shaliach also is a certain expression of that. All right. So I think we got up to Yud, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I apologize for not knowing, but you'll get there. Al pize yuvan ateichen. Based on this, and what we've been talking about, you can understand the content, and this is what we talked about outside last time. Hateichen shal bakashas Moshe, Moshe's request at the sneh, at the burning bush, shlach na biyad tishlach. Send the one you're going to send. B'bakasha v'atzah zu ratza Moshe yifol. With this request, Moshe wanted to bring about, upa'al b'feil, and did bring about in actuality, es a chibur, the unity, the joining together, vis achdus, and the unity, shall goyel rishon, the goyel rishon, the first redeemer, Moshe, v'goyel achrein, and the last redeemer, Moshiach, which is what we talked about yesterday. Now that's very interesting, right? Because what Shevet is the Mashiach from? Yehuda. What Shevet is Moshe from? Levi. So that's very interesting, right? Moshe is a Levi, right? Oh, okay. The Rebbe often talks something very fascinating about the Indian of Mashiach. Who's Mashiach? Mashiach mitzad echad is a Rav, mitzad sheni is a king. Right? The Rav comes from Moshe. Where does the king come from? Yehuda, right? And specifically, which member of Yehuda who represents kingship in the Jewish people more than anybody else? David, right? So Mashiach is a unity of Moshe and David, Melech and Rav, right? Well, Rav and Melech, if I put it that way, right? Which is also two different shvatim, it's two different tribes, which is very interesting. Right? The two tribes that are around now more than any other. Right? Most Jews today are either from Shevet Levi or Shevet Yehuda. There's the odd other Jew like spread around, but basically Yidden today are from Shevet Yehuda. Or a few, very few, meaning most not, right? Because 10 lost tribes, that whole idea, right? Meaning most Yidden today come from Yehuda and Levi. That's why we're called Yehudim. Yehuda. That's where it comes from. There's no reason to call someone from Shevet Gad a Yehudi. Right? He's a Yid, but he's not a Yehudi, he's a Gadi. Moshe mitzad atzmai, Moshe in terms of himself, in Yonei, his reality, be'ikr, Chochmah, Torah. It's all about Chochmah. Moshe Kosev, Zichur Teres Moshe Abdi. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moshe received Torah from Sinai. Sara Yeshua, and gave it to Yeshua. And what Torah is that talking about? Just to make sure that you are aware of that fact. Torah is about Peh. When we say Moshe kibel Torah miSinai Messiah Yeshua in the beginning of Pirkei Avos, we're not talking about Torah Shebechsav. Who did Moshe give Torah Shebechsav to? Everybody. He gave the whole Jewish people the written Torah. Who did he give the oral tradition to? Yeshua, who passed it along to the Zakanim, the Nevim, etc. Nevim, Zakanim. Okay. Moshe mitzad atzmei, inyane be'ikr. I'm sorry, Moshiach mitzad atzmei. Moshiach, in terms of himself, inyane. This is what we were just talking about. Be'ikr malchus. Mashiach's a melech. Yamad melech mi beis David. Melech a Mashiach, we say. V'yesh lai mishazeu al derech achiluk. This is very much in line with the difference bein mailas hamashpia, the loftiness of the one who, the giver, right? There's shefa. Shefa is bounty. The one who's giving the bounty is the mashpia. The one who's receiving the bounty is the mushpa, right? Okay. Now, generally, when we talk about mashpia and we use mashpia as a mashal, as a parable in Chassidus, a lot about how the Eibishter relates to the world and how godly light is brought down into the world in a way that the world can be a kli for it and a receptacle for it. Right, and the mashal we often use is the mashpia, and not so much the mushpa, but the mashpia and the Talmud, the one teaching and the one receiving. Obviously, if the mashpia, now this is about a mashpia who's much greater than the Talmidim, right? So a mashpia is much greater than the Talmidim, can't possibly say over the thoughts as they resonate in his intellect to his students because they won't understand it. What does he have to do? Is to take the thought as it resonates in his intellect, process it, and then give it over to the student. It has to be mitzamtzem, that thought, and put it in a form that the student can understand, which is what the Rebbeim do for us. Right? I don't imagine that the Rebbeim discuss ideas in Chassidus with each other the way they discuss it with us. Right? They could say 5 words, and that would be a 15-page mimer to us. Right? Lahavdil, doctors discussing a patient. They say, well, I think he's got McKenzie syndrome. Oh, you're kidding! Well, I haven't seen that in years. What do they call it? What regimen are you using? Are you using Mackenzie's own, or are you using the one that Schwartz thought of? Well, I'm using actually a little bit of both, a little Mackenzie, a little Schwartz, because I found that there were certain problems with Mackenzie. Okay, so now you're standing next to these 2 guys. They had that conversation in 45 seconds, right? Do you know what's wrong with this guy, and do you know what they're trying to do? Haven't got a clue. It's all codes. Now, they could explain it to you in an hour. You say, look, this is what's wrong with the guy, right? His, I don't know, spleen. We're into spleen around here, right? His spleen. The doc expressed, taught us what a spleen does. I don't remember what it was, but Orient also told us. Right? He's got a spleen issue. So it's supposed to do this, and it's not doing this, and that's causing this, and that's causing this, and that's causing this. And Mackenzie figured out how to deal with that. And you do this, and you do this, and this, but the side effects are this and this and this. And so someone else came up. Okay, it would take them quite a while to explain all this stuff. Whereas they could talk about it in a minute and a half. When they explain it to us, what are they doing? They're taking the ideas that exist in their head. They're bringing it down to a form that a layman can understand. It's the same idea. They're not changing the idea. They're not telling me the truth. They're telling me the truth. But they're just telling me the truth in a way that I, who didn't study medicine, can understand. Okay. So do the Rebbeim. Do that about God. Right? That's how a teacher teaches a student. Takes the idea, processes the idea in his seichel so that it's something that can be received in the seichel of the student. And that's called a mashpia and a makabel. Right? So here, what the Rebbe is talking about, the level of mashpia. What's the level of mashpia? So that's chokhmah. Chokhmah, Rosh Spheres, the beginning of all spheres. All 10 spheres emanate from Chokhmah. Rosh, the head of something, is always not only the head of it, the first of it, but just why do we call the beginning of the year, why do we call it Tchilas Hashanah? Begin first of the year, beginning of the year. No. In English, they don't call it the head of the year. They call it New Year, or the first of the year. Right. Why? Because no shefa, no bounty, no energy comes from the 1st of January to the 7th of April. 1st of January is just an arbitrary day that called the beginning of the year. Rosh Hashanah is not an arbitrary day. Rosh Hashanah is the source of all of the energy for the whole rest of the year. Right? Rosh Chodesh is the source of all of the energy for the whole rest of the month. Right? Now, we don't call Shabbos Rosh, but Shabbos is also the source of the energy for the rest of the week. Right? It's also the repository of the energy from the week before. Right? Okay. It's the Vayechulu of the week before, the culmination of it all, but it's also the source of the week after. Not just because you sleep a little more on Shabbos and you have energy. Right? Hopefully. Right? The energy, not the sleeping more on Shabbos part. Right? Mendel used to get very upset at Bachrim if they slept Shabbos afternoon, which is really not fair, but okay. Not Dafka Mendel was fair. But he would talk about it. And for Brennans, he said, look, you want to go to sleep Shabbos afternoon, I get it. Especially a Shabbos afternoon, a summer Shabbos. So, okay. So if you want to go sleep, fine. Just do me a favor. Don't do it in your bed. Just like fall asleep on a couch or in a chair or something. Don't go to your bed. And he would he'd get passionate. Don't get in pajamas. Just don't get into pajamas on Shabbos afternoon. I mean, it's Shabbos, right? You want to spend your Shabbos sleeping? You want to waste all that holiness sleeping? But at least not in pajamas. He'd get very passionate about not getting in pajamas, right? You want to fall asleep in your clothes, on your bed, okay. But he'd really rather you not fall asleep on your bed. You'd fall asleep on a couch or on a chair. Let it be natural, you know. Start reading something and fall asleep, which is a beautiful feeling, right? Because there's sometimes when you have to force yourself to stay awake, and you have to really force yourself. Sometimes you have, and this is why plane rides are so pleasant for me at least. You can read something, and then if you just feel like dozing, you just close your eyes, because you don't have anything to do there. It's no phone calls, nothing. It's such a freedom from everything. And if you want to sleep on the plane, you're learning something, right? And then all of a sudden your eyes get tight, just close them and fall asleep. It's the great. Then you wake up, open up your eyes, go learn a little more. Then you feel like sleeping, get up, fall asleep. Very rare in life do you get such an incredible opportunity. So that's the Rosh, the head. So that first of the spheres is Chochmah. That means it's the Mashpia. It's giving energy to all of the other spheres, just like Rosh Hashanah gives energy to the whole year. Umaylis a Makabel, and also the advantage of the Makabel. What's the Makabel? Malchus. What's Malchus? The 10th Sphera, which is the receptacle for all of the other spheres. And we say about Malchus, Leis la migarma klum. She has none of her own. In other words, she's the receptacle for all of the energy of the other 9 spheres. All comes down into Malchus. And Malchus is both the receptacle from above and the source of below, because the next step in reality, if you're talking about the transition from Eilam HaTzilus to Eilam HaBriya, one world to another world. So all of the energy, all of the ore of Eilam HaTzilus is collected, so to speak, in Malchus. And then what does Malchus become? Malchus is both the source, the receptacle for all of the light of Atzilus, also the source of the next level of reality, Chochmah of Bria. Where does that reality called Bria Yesh Mi'ayin happen? Kriyatio ex nihilo. Where does that happen? Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus of Atzilus is a state of ayin, godly reality, not created. When we say ayin, we mean it's not created. What does it give birth to? Yesh, something created, which itself is rather hard to understand, because how does an apple give birth to an orange? Say that. Does a cow give birth to a goat? Cows give birth to cows, so ayin should give birth to ayin. That's not how it works. Okay, and so the miracle of Bria Yesh Mi'ayin, of one thing being the source of something completely different, that reality happens in Malchus of Atzilus, the receptacle of all of the Or in Atzilus, being the source of the next step. So Malchus of Atzilus becomes the Keser. Malchus and Keser go together. What do kings wear? Crowns. Right? Malchus becomes the Keser, the source of the next world. Right? Okay. call me everybody.
Amen.
Okay, so Chachma, that's Moshe, that's the Mashpia. Moshe gives. Malchus, that's David. The Rebbe's not saying that here, but that's David. And here the Rebbe's talking about Moshe wanting to be that. That's the Makabel. That's the recipient. Umaylis Makabel. Al derech hachiluk, like the difference between Or HaShemesh, the Mashpia, the Or HaLavana, and the light of the moon, the Makabel. Why does the moon have light? Today, why does the moon have light? There was a time when the moon was called a ma'or, a source of light, a luminary, right? Right at the beginning of creation, the moon was a luminary. Okay? That stopped before we showed up. And what did the moon become? A receiver. What does it receive? Light of the sun. It reflects the light of the sun. That's the student, reflecting the light of the teacher. That's the makabel. That's David HaMelech. Malchus. Makabel, Malchus, Hakashrim David Malka Mashiach. That's connected with David Malka Mashiach. Right? The Suda of David Malka Mashiach, Dafka in the dark. Right? When do we eat the Suda of David Malka Mashiach? Milava Malka. It's the Suda of David Malka Mashiach. Right? It's Milava Malka. When do you eat Milava Malka? Sun's not out. The moon might be. I mean, it's, if it's around, then it's around then. It's not always around, right? This week, amazing Sicha of the Rebbe, if you want to learn it. Not easy, but an amazing Sicha. The Sicha of Parshas told us, Tafshin and Beis, right after this, where the Rebbe describes the Inyan of Rosh Chodesh, what's Rosh Chodesh all about. And it's interesting, the Jews are compared to the moon, right? We say that we're compared to the moon. We wax and wane, right? But it's interesting, we're not compared to a full moon. We're compared. It doesn't say that we're compared to the full moon. It says just like the moon is mischadesh, it's renewed, meaning it should start showing up again on Rosh Chodesh, so too the Jewish people are renewed. Meaning we might experience a time of darkness, but then we begin to shine again. But interesting enough, we're not compared to the full moon. That's what Rabbi points out in the Sicha. We're compared to the moon as it's beginning to shine. All right? Now, most Jewish holidays are in the first half of the month. Matter of fact, all Jewish holidays are in the first half of the month until the last holiday that showed up for the Jewish people, which was what? Hanukkah. Right? Which is very interesting. At near the end of the Second Temple period, which begins, the destruction of the Second Temple begins the period of Moshiach, right? 2,000 years of what's called chaos, 2,000 years of Torah. That culminates with the destruction of the Second Temple, and 2,000 years of Mashiach. That's how Chazal divide up the 6,000 years of the world's history. The 7th millennium is Shabbos, Mashiach. So there's 2,000 years of what's called Mashiach. Mashiach can show up at any time there, but it seems to be near the end, right? Here we are, we're still here. So Hanukkah is dafka at the end, and the Rebbe explains the difference in the beginning and the end. It's very fascinating. Why are we compared to the moon at the beginning of its cycle when it has very little light? But where is the moon in the beginning of its cycle? Closest to the sun, right? Relative to us, we're in the middle. This is how the Rambam charts things, right? And you can chart it this way. The Rambam can tell you exactly where the moon and the sun and the planets are going to be based on us being in the middle, right? Modern science does it with the sun in the middle. Nothing's in the middle. They're all moving, right? They're moving relative to each other. So you and I can say that the sun is staying still and everything is going around it. Well, it's not staying still, but we'll plot it that way. Or you can say we're staying still and everybody's going around us. So that's how the Rambam does it. The calculations are much more difficult. There's no question. The sun in the middle, the calculations are easier. I haven't got a clue how to do either of them, but the calculations are evidently easier if the sun is in the middle. But the Rambam, not only can he did. And he wrote it all down in Hilchos Kiddush Chodesh, how things move, and the Rambam tells you what's Rosh Chodesh going to be in 150 years. Where is it? What day of the week is Rosh Chodesh Tevis going to be? Right? What hour of the day is going to be what's called the Mayanot? Right? You can plot it. He does, hundreds of years in advance. Okay. So Rabbi Akiva did with the calendar. So if we're in the middle, so when do you, what full moon means, moon rise and sun set are the same time, right? That's full moon. That's the 15th of every month. And so they're going around us like that. So the sun is directly facing the moon, and the whole front, the whole face of the moon, not the dark side, the light side, right? The light side of the moon is facing us, right? And they're going around like that. Okay, now as the month progresses, if we'll start from the 15th, what happens? The moon starts getting closer and closer to the sun. So sunset, there's no moon, right? Later on at night, the moon will rise, right? When the sun's around, you know that thing where you do your hands back? I don't know how to do that. Okay, so it's like that. So when the sun is down here, the moon's going to be up here. It's going to rise. What are you going to see? Just a little sliver of it over here, or not much. Until ultimately, interesting enough, the moon will be right next to the sun, and they will go around us together. Then you won't see the moon. It's not there. The moon's in the sky every night. You just don't, well, it's in the sky every day. Every 24-hour day, the moon is in the sky at some point. You just don't see it when the sun's up there. Sometimes you actually can, right? You can sort of make out the fact that there's a moon up there. Okay. Not in the summer, I don't think, just because whatever. There's also too much stuff in the sky usually, unless you live in British Columbia where it rains even in the summer and clears out the sky. All right, so what happens Rosh Chodesh? Fascinating thing. Right before Rosh Chodesh, the moon was right next to its source. What's Rosh Chodesh? The first sign of the essential existence of the moon, but very little light. Very little light. A sliver of light. So what are you most powerfully aware of? Not so much the light of the moon, but the essential existence of the moon. And that's what we're compared to. When the moon's mischadesh, because the moon's mischadesh is actually its most powerful moment, right, on a certain level. In terms of revealed reality, its most powerful moment is the 15th. When do we have holidays? When the moon's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we're compared to the moon. Right? And that's all in revealed reality. And those are all the holidays in the Torah. All of a sudden Hanukkah comes along, and what's the focus? Well, that's what he's talking about in this Sicha. That's right, the Sicha we're talking about now is right after this Sicha. Right? What happens? What we start to become aware of is not so much revealed reality, but essential reality. What's the moon doing the second half of the month? It's moving closer and closer to its source, which is really interesting. The first half of the month, it's moving farther from its source. Therefore, more and more light, but that means farther and farther away from its source in the sun. Less light, interestingly enough, on a certain level dichotomously, is producing more and more connection because it's now closer and closer to the sun again relative to us. Until when there's no light, where is it? It's right next to its source. It's still 93 million miles away, right? But relative to us, it's right there. And they're going to go around us like that for a day or two. And then slowly but surely, the moon is going to start receding away from the sun again. And that increase in light is when all our holidays were until Hanukkah. What's Hanukkah? Hanukkah is also the only holiday in our whole year that starts in one month and ends in another month. It's the only month that bridges Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Hashanah doesn't start in one month and it starts in the first day of the month. Rosh Chodesh is the 30th and the 1st, right? But Rosh Hashanah isn't. Rosh Hashanah is the 1st and the 2nd, right? Could be the 30th and the 1st, and it would be really interesting, but it's not. It's not the end of one month and the beginning of the other. It's 2 days at the beginning of Tishrei. Okay, so what's happening in the end of the month, and what's happening as we start getting closer and closer to Geula? More a revelation of the essential existence of things, and less revelation of simply the revealed infinite reality of things. Because Moshiach is a revelation of the essence of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So that now the Rebbe being the Rebbe, of course, also mentions Yud Tes Kislev, another holiday in the second half of the month. One of the things the Rebbe allowed us to start doing that was always minhag, it was never halacha, but the minhag was that you don't get married in the second half of a month, except Elul, because of the holiness of all of Elul, and Kislev, because of Hanukkah in the second half. And any other month, all weddings until 45 years ago, all weddings were in the first half of the month. No one got married the second half of the month. And you didn't get married in Cheshvan. A month without any holidays. Right? Didn't get married in Cheshvan. That was the basic minhag of people. The Rebbe changed it. He said, no, don't have to worry about it. You get married the second half of the month, and you get married in Cheshvan.
Just get married.
Just get married. Oh, so right, you're 100%. The Rebbe said, just get married. That's the most important thing, right? But it's also interesting in terms of the metaphysical reality that we find ourselves in, closer and closer to Moshiach. So then those places that usually were darkness are now ultimately something very powerful, because the darkness isn't simply the absence of light. It's getting closer and closer to a place beyond light, which is Atzmos, which is the essence of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, like the moon getting closer and closer to its source in the sun. So when you don't see the moon is actually closest to its source. That's the second half of the month. And that's why a lot of Chassidish holidays in the second half of the month are episodes. Starting with the Yotes Kislev. But Hanukkah, starting with Hanukkah. Right? Most holidays are when? 15th. Full moon. Right? Where the moon is shining the brightest on the 15th. Lots of holidays on the 15th. Right? 14th, 15th, Purim. Right? Chamish Shvat, the month before that, Tu B'Shvat. Right? Sukkot, Pesach. Right? Okay, back to our mimer. The moon. Moshe kibel ter misina masar liyeshua. Second paragraph up, right column, 295. Who kibel es kol haTorah. He got the whole Torah. Shehi makar kol hashpais, which is the source of all bounty. Umimena, and from it, nimshach hakayach al kol inyanim. And from it is drawn the power and the potential for all reality, all matters. Kailol, including, obviously, but that's what we're talking about, a kayach l'geula, the power for geula. Gama geula achrena, also the last geula. Inyaner shel Moshiach, the whole notion of Moshiach, hu goyel achrein, he's the last redeemer. Shehu ba b'seif Veda, he comes at the end of our Veda, after everything the Jewish people have accomplished, from Matan Torah until today, which will hopefully be the day Mashiach comes. Everything we've done up until, in all of those years, Malchus, which is represented by Malchus, Sefer Spheres, the end of the spheres, the receptacle for it all, B'seif Zman HaGolus, which is at the end of the time of Golus. He comes at the end, Aval, you'll say it's the end, so somehow it's not as powerful as the beginning. Everything comes from the beginning. So it's true, everything comes from the beginning. There's no question that Matan Torah is the beginning of it all, and all of the koyach to do everything we've ever done as a people comes from that moment. That being said, there's a greatness to the end. Yesh b'zeh mailas hamakabel. The revelation of the power of the receptacle, the receiver. Shall yedei bitulai, by virtue of his nullification to his source. Who kelel b'secher, he includes in himself, but panemius, in an inner way, as kol hashparis milamayla, all of the bounty that comes from above. Meaning, where is the mashpia truly revealed? In the makabel. Right? What does the makabel do? The makabel reveals the mashpia. Where do you see the greatness of a teacher? Students. Right? I mean, when you talk about the greatness of a scientist, where will the greatness? Well, in his experiments, in those things that he brought about. We can't see inside his head. Right? How do we see inside his head? We see the fruits of that intellectual activity. What's that? Well, those would be the experiments he did, and the people that he affected by virtue of all those things that he was thinking up and teaching and revealing. Right? Where do you see the power of a teacher? Students. Right? Right? Rabbi Sachs's famous line about the Rebbe, right? What he found most compelling about the Rebbe. He said the Rebbe didn't make followers, the Rebbe made leaders. Right? We just saw 5,000 of them gathered together in New York, right? 5,000 people who on one hand are completely bottled to the source. On the other hand, it's the shlichus. Go out there, just ready to take on the world and do whatever has to be done in order to make wherever they are a place that's a better place, a holier place. It's just absolutely astounding. And they go out when they're relatively young. Right? They're not seasoned veterans. Right? They don't practice in the minor leagues. Like they just go out there. They're just sort of thrown out in the major leagues at 23. Okay, go out there, figure it out. Right? You, your wife, and your 8-month-old baby in tow. Go take over some town. And then they usually end up having, who are the first people they meet? People old, the same age as their parents, right? They knock on their door and say, hi, I'm, so there's a little 20, now, I'm comparing him to the 50-year-old he's talking to, and I'm not calling 23-year-olds squirts in absolute terms, right? Because they aren't. But relative to that 50-year-old, that he feels like this little 23-year-old squirt with one kid shows up and says, okay, hi, I'm here to take over the town. You want to help? Who are you? What are you doing? Okay. A lot of breitkeit. A lot of what you would call self-confidence. Where's the self-confidence come from? Bittul. If he's bottled to his task, he'll have self-confidence. If it's all about him, he'll be nervous. He'll be nervous, which is reasonable. He's probably nervous anyway. But where does the kayach come from? The kayach comes from the bittul to the source. It's not about me, it's about the source. I'm here to represent something bigger than me. Torah, God, Moshe. Right? Okay. Hukel b'secher b'pnimius, top line, left column, 295, is kol hashpais milamayla. V'adarabba, au contraire, or a makabel, the light of the receptacle, magia, reaches, v'neiveya. Neveya is like flows. Midarga nailis yeser, from a higher place, mi'ora mashpia, than the light of the mashpia. Ultimately, the makabel ends up being even greater than the mashpia. Kefishi is gala begula mitis v'shlema, as will be revealed in gula mitis v'shlema. That what? What happens then? Nekeva tisevev gever. That the woman will surround the man, which means femininity will surround masculinity. Who's the mashpia? Who's the makabel? The man is the mashpia. The woman's the makabel. What's one of the aspects of Moshiach, and we're seeing this in the world we live in, sometimes we see it in Klippa, but we also see it in Kedusha. What's Moshiach? The revelation of Malchus. What's Malchus? Femininity. The Makabel, the one who receives. What are we seeing in our days? Power of femininity. Where are we seeing that? Not in the feminist movement, because they got it all wrong. What do they want to be? Men. No! Wrong. It's not about being men. It's about being women. What are women? Makabel. And what's being revealed, Baruch Hashem, in Kedusha? Shluches. Women who are unbelievable in their ability to translate transcendent ideas in a way that they are completely and totally comfortable in the reality down here that men often have a hard time to doing, because men often tend to be very conceptual, women are practical. And that's the book of Bereshis, right? Avram Avinu has one idea, Sara has another. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, listen to Sara. She's the practical one. She knows what to do with Yishmael. You with all your ideas about Yishmael, that's very nice, but she knows what to do with him. Out he goes. Complete separation of Yitzhak and Yishmael. It might be conceptually interesting to see them somehow work together. In the end, they do work together. Last week's Parsha, one of the Rashis at the end. How do we see that Yishmael did tshuva? Beautiful. He came to Avram's funeral, and who's mentioned first? Yitzchak is mentioned first before Yishmael. Beautiful. Rashi on Chumash, right? I think that's where we see the Yishmael did tshuva. How did he do tshuva? Sara sent him away. Right? He did tshuva over there, not over here. Right? Well, this week's Parsha, what's going to happen? It's going to happen soon. Just wait. It's very exciting. This week's Parsha, what's going to happen? It's going to be a whole story in Yitzchak's tent. What does Yitzchak want to do? Yitzchak thinks that the bracha, now ultimately, it's interesting, and we talked about this a little before, but it's very, very fascinating. Moshiach is all about, ultimately, the rectification of Esav. That the world of Esav should be rectified and accept godliness. 100%. And the Rebbe said that's been done. Right? Esav today is very different than Esav 60 years ago. Esav is basically Europe. Europe up until, maybe it's a little longer than 60 now, right? I'm dating myself. Europe up until 80, 90 years ago was interested in conquering and pillaging and plundering the rest of the world. Right? Now you can't get them to pick up a gun. Even if there's a good reason. Now they're just letting Yishmael run over the whole place. Like, it's just so bizarre. Hello, right? What happened to your, us? And what? Nothing. I mean, they're little pussycats. They can't even exert their own identity, right? Okay, so now that's not necessarily positive. Yes, no. Who knows how that's going to fit into the whole story? But bottom line, the Esav is completely different than Esav used to be. Esav from the Greeks and the Romans on was interested in conquering, pillaging, and plundering the rest of the world, and they did. Right? Now, a lot of the stuff they took to the rest of the world was good. Right? I mean, they took a lot of stuff to the rest of the world. It was very good. And the English, we've talked about this before, and it's hard to say, it's hard for us to give the English any credit. But you have to give the English credit. Wherever they went, they left the place in good shape. Canada, Australia. They might have been kicked out of these places. They weren't kicked out of Canada, so they're kicked out of the United States. Okay, but they left the United States in pretty good shape. Australia, pretty good shape. Bermuda, right? Pretty good shape. Compared to Haiti and Dominican Republic, a lot better shape, right? Where the French were and where the Spanish were, not so good, right? Where the English were. India, largest democracy in the world, right? 500-600 million people in the middle class in India. A lot of poverty, but a lot of people with money, Baruch Hashem, more than anywhere else in the world. I guess China's probably catching up now, right? I don't know how many Chinese have, apartments that are their own, cars and cell phones, right? That sort of middle class. Well, in India, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people who live in what you and I call the middle class. Biggest middle class in the world.
Middle class in India is bigger than Europe.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, it's everybody thinks of India as this poor guy. Yes, there's poverty there that's beyond belief. But it's also democratic. They actually have elections all the time, right? And they actually vote out the guy if they don't like him. Vote. It's astounding what goes on over it. And you got to give the English credit. They left that wherever they went. Okay, but who were they? The English, the French, the Germans, the Spanish, the Portuguese. What were they doing? Conquering the rest of the world, taking all the stuff back from where that was to them. Still can't get the English to give the Parthenon back to the Greeks, right? They've got all the what do they call them? The friezes or something? What do they call those things? Right? Yeah, they got that, all the good stuff. They left the building, but all this, they chipped it away and took it back to their museum. No, it's ours. What do you mean it's yours? It's theirs. No, they say in their English accent. Right, so they sound okay. When you say it in an English accent, you can say almost anything, You say shut up, like an American, sounds terrible. Oh, shut up. It doesn't sound so bad when an Englishman says it, right? That's so, American says it sounds terrible. Don't say that. An Englishman, oh, shut up. It sounds okay. That's not it's a little emphatic, but it's not, it doesn't annoy you. Right? Okay, they can get away with anything in English. That little accent of theirs. Sorry, son. Right? So.
That's what I've had at Mayanot.
What?
That's what I've had at Mayanot.
What, English accent? Oh, come on. I grew up in Canada, man. I also have an English son-in-law, and I have grandchildren who speak with this unbelievably strong Mancunian accent that drives me around the bend, but it's very cute.
It's a lovely accent.
It is. It's very cute, I must say, but it does take a while to get used to. Zadie, could I ask you a question? Just say it. Zadie, I was wondering. Zadie, I love it. It's really English. Okay, no, back to our mind. I'm sorry. Okay, so what's Mashiach? Mashiach is the power of Malchus, which is what? Femininity. The power of femininity. In this week's Parsha, this is how we got to that crazy rant. This week's Parsha is the beginning of the whole story of Yaakov and Esav, right? Which is the whole story of the Jewish people and the world that most of us live, not all of us, right? But most of us lived in, and the world that has basically controlled the rest of the world until fairly recently, like now. Still the strongest power in the world is, European Americans. They're not Europeans, but there's descendants of. Okay. Still the biggest economy in the world. China's the second, but they're the first. Right? So that world, that the interplay between the Yidden and that world has been going on, that dance has been going on since Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is going to go visit Esav at the end of next week's Parsha, and Esav's going to say, why don't you come see me? Well, sorry, 2 weeks, Vayishlach. He's going to say, why don't you come see me? And what does Yaakov say? I will, but not now. When? B'meis Mashiach. Rashi, Chumash. I'll come see you, B'meis Mashiach. You and I are going to get along then, but not now. You're not ready to be rectified yet, Yaakov says. What did Yitzchak think? That he could give the brachas to Esav and bring about his rectification now. Who understood that that wasn't happening and it had to go through Yaakov? Rivka, the woman, who understood how that had to be expressed in the reality of this world, because that's femininity. Right? Gracious. Rachel and Leah. After we've talked about this before. After Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Yaakov Avinu, okay, time to leave Lavan, what does he do? Goes and asks his wife, is it time? Is it time? God just said go. He says to them, the Eibishter told me to go. What do you think? Is it time? And they say, yes, we have nothing to do here. Meaning what we were supposed to do here has been done. The elevation of that which is Lavan has been done. We're taking away 11 children, right? Not Binyamin, he wasn't there yet. And Yosef's been born, and Yosef is going to be the most powerful force to battle Esav, right? And we're ready to go. Let's go. It's done. Women, Bereshit, it's all about women. The only woman in Bereshit who made a mess, and Yaakov, I think you mentioned this last time we talked about this, was the first one. She made a big mess. She's the one her husband shouldn't have listened to. But it was obviously supposed to happen, right? 6th day of creation. Part of creation, not the history. Okay, so let's go further. And that's the inyan of Mashiach, which is Nekeva Tesevev Gever. The woman surrounds the man. Where do we see an expression of that today? A woman surrounding a man?
Weddings.
Under the chuppah. The chuppah is a little taste of Gan Eden, a little taste of Mashiach under there. Who's going around who? She's going around him. She's encompassing him. You're going to be under a chuppah Bezrat Hashem with your wife-to-be. She will be your wife by the time you're under there. And you're going to enjoy that very much, but you probably will be so spaced out that you're not really going to remember the whole thing too clearly, because it's a pretty powerful experience, and you're like, not thinking as clearly as you might, stam in everyday life. And then some other time in your life, Bezrat Hashem, you will be able to go under chuppahs, and that's when you're under the chuppah with your own children, and that's when you really appreciate what a chuppah is, because you're not the nervous one. Right? You're marrying off a daughter, you're a little nervous because you never know. Hopefully this guy's going to take care of her. But you always look at the face on the Kala's parents and on the Chassan's parents. The Chassan's parents have smiles ear to ear, and the Kala's parents are like, we're happy, but we hope this guy's okay. Because a cracked man is dangerous. A cracked woman can ruin a guy's life, but she's not dangerous. No, seriously. Men, if they're not proper husbands, are dangerous. physically dangerous. So a woman who's not a good wife can make her husband miserable. She's not dangerous. She just can ruin his life, but she's not dangerous. He can be dangerous. Men, it's embarrassing sometimes, And it's not just white men, don't worry. It's not just white men, it's all men. We can, if we're not the way we're supposed to be, we can really be very, very destructive. But the woman is surrounding the man in that place, because that's a little taste of Gan Eden. And when you're under there with your own children, which I understand is a few steps away, but okay, you'll get there, Bezrat Hashem. It's a very, very, very special place to be. It's quite amazing. And that's Mailis Haguf Shel Yehudi. What's that? What's the idea of the Makabel? That's our body. Legabe Nishmase, relative to his neshama. And ultimately, what has a higher source? The Guf has a higher source than the neshama, ultimately. Because where's it all supposed to happen? Down here with the Guf. Right? Shadafka Bay, that Dafka in that Guf, Nimsa Koyach Atzmus, is found the power of the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's finish the paragraph and we'll talk about that for a second, then we'll go further. We'll try to get down to Yesh Lemer. Right? Lochein Dafka Mashiach Yavi Esegul. I'm sorry. Va'ad, to such an extent, Shalasid Lavei, in the future days, what does it say? What do Chazal tell us? And the Neshama Nizanis Mina Guf. The soul is going to be nourished by the body. Right now, who gives energy to who? The Neshama gives energy to the Guf. B'yimei Mashiach, what's going to happen? The Guf is going to give energy to the Neshama, because the source of the Guf is higher than the source of the Neshama. One quick point which the Rebbe talks about in his first Maimon. The physical world itself, in general. The Rebbe doesn't talk about the Guf per se, he talks about the physical world in general. The physical world in general reveals something absolutely fascinating. The one thing that you and I can say, and we'll learn this after Hanukkah, we'll start learning Basi Lagani, where the Rebbe talks about this. The one thing you can say about the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't understand anything about that level of reality. The one thing we can say is that Mitziyusa Miyatzmusa, I'm quoting the Mitla Rebbe, it exists by virtue of itself. Meaning he exists by virtue of himself. He doesn't have a source in anything, which is hard for us to imagine, because everything we experience has a source in something else. Something else is giving it the light you're experiencing bouncing off your page so you can see the words has a source in the light bulbs. They have a source in the electricity. The electricity has a source in something else, right? Everything comes from something. It's nothing that just is. Right? The only thing that just is, and this is called Yesh Amiti, true being, meaning it exists and it doesn't depend on anything else for its existence. It exists by virtue of itself. The only thing about which we can say that is the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even godly light we can't say it about. Why? Because it has a source at a higher level. Right? Every level of godly light has a source and a higher level of godly light. Until ultimately, that first level of light, what's its source? Atzmus. Atzmus, the luminary, the ma'or, the source of the or, the luminary. Okay, no, the Rebbe Shab doesn't want us to call Atzmus a source of light because that's limiting it. Okay, so generally it's luminary. The ma'or. Sunlight, where does it come from? The sun. Now, imagine the sun existed by virtue of itself. So then what would all existence be? The sun. Right? Sunlight is just an expression of the sun. Right? Where does the sun come from? It doesn't. It's just there. Well, it does. God created it. Okay, so where does God come from? He doesn't. Now, what level are you talking about? The essence of God. He's just there. Where did he come from? He didn't. Why is he there? Just is. When did he show up? There's no when he showed up. Well, how's that work? Can't figure that out. Why is he there? What does he do? What's his function? What's his purpose? It just is. Absolute being. Okay, there's some being, and this is the only level of you that can connect to that is called emunah. Seichel, intellect, can't. Emunah can touch that place. Intellect can't, because emunah touches a place that intellect can't get to. Because your emunah is coming from the essence of your soul, which is connected to that place. Okay. So now what's unique about physical reality? Physical reality is the one place in all of either godly or created reality that falsely, but still, expresses the notion of existence by virtue of itself. This cup, what does it say? I am. What's it not say? I come from somewhere else. Now, it does. You and I know it does. Now, even in terms of the tree that's the source of it, okay, you and I know that, but we're talking on a deeper level. Why does this exist? Because God's giving it energy to exist. Do you see that in the cup? No. The cup conceals that completely and totally. This cup is simply saying, I am. And what else is he saying? I don't want to do this too hard because there's still a little cup of coffee in there. You can't be where I am. I'm here and you're not. That's absolute yeshus. Yesh hanivra, created being. But there's a level of created being that's metaphysical and shows you clearly its source in higher levels. Right? Like that bottle is, if the water inside were its source, that bottle's revealing that it's really about the water inside and it's not about itself. This thing, you wouldn't even know there's anything in it. Right? It's hiding what's in it. There is, don't worry. The remnants of a good cup of coffee. Right? One more sip. Okay. Anything in here? I don't know. Yes. Right? What is it? God, I haven't got a clue. Right? I assume water. Okay. So this world is unique in that it reveals on a certain level the notion of existence by virtue of itself. It's false, but it truly does posit that. It's a false position. It's not true that we exist by virtue of ourselves, but it's truly our experience of our existence. Who gave us that existence? God. What level of a Kadosh Baruch Hu could give you and I the experience of existence by virtue of itself? Only the essence of God. Why? Well, how can godly light give me an experience that it itself doesn't have? Light does not experience itself as existence by virtue of itself. What's light, if however light is aware? I'm talking about godly light. What's it aware of completely? What's it revealing? What's light all about? That's why we use the mushal of light to express godly energy. What is light all about? Even physical light. What's it all about? That comes from somewhere else, right? Every time you see physical light, what do you immediately look for? Where's that coming from? Source. So such thing's light without a source. No such thing. Okay. So that's why we use light as a mushal, as a parable for godly energy. It's got a source in something else. Higher. There's one point where there's no source. That's called the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. At the end of that process, there's something called Yesh Nivra, created being, and that created being is specifically the goof, the body, posits its own independent existence. Why are you? I just am. When you wake up in the morning, what are you aware of? Godliness surging into you, giving you energy? Oh, it's me again. Right? Now sometimes you wake up and you're disoriented, right? Like you're wait, where am I? What day of the week is it? Right? Shabbos, you might wake up and go, it's 8 o'clock. Oh, it's Shabbos. That's okay. It's okay. Why did my alarm ring? Well, I set an alarm because it's Shabbos. You don't have to. Chill. Don't worry. It's okay. Might be the other way around. Some weekdays, all of a sudden the alarm rings. You go, why's the alarm ringing? Oh, it's Tuesday. I have to get up. Okay. But what do you become aware of? Yourself. What aren't you aware of? The godliness surging into you, giving you that existence and that consciousness. What's the first statement you make? Right? Interesting enough, in that same Sicha we were talking about the moon, the Rebbe says an amazing thing about that first moment of consciousness before Maidani. What's the only thing you're aware of? Your essential existence. I am. That first moment. Now, that moment can be destroyed by an alarm. No, seriously, you won't necessarily experience that when the alarm goes on, because you'll experience the alarm and not yourself. But when you wake up on a morning without an alarm, that first moment of consciousness, what are you aware of? One thing and one thing only. I am. Rebbe says that's like Melid Levana. That's like the birth of the moon. The only thing there is the essential existence of the moon. There's no light yet. What's the first expression of light? Maidani. That's the first expression. But before that, there's this interesting experience of I am. It's me again. Now that's a fleeting moment. Again, with an alarm, we don't really experience that as powerfully. That's why it's nice to wake up certain mornings without an alarm, right? Because then you have this incredibly powerful moment of an experience of your essential existence. Now, the first thing you do is make a statement, I don't exist by virtue of myself. Thank you. That's a very important thing to say. But what's our experience? We exist by virtue of ourselves. Where's that coming from? The goof. So what's the source of the goof? That's what Rebbe just said. Atzmus. Physicality comes from a higher place than spirituality. Spirituality is light. Physicality is essence. That's why God wants to be revealed down here. When you reveal godliness down here, what level of godliness are you revealing? Essence. Because this is the level that reveals falsely, but it still gives us an appreciation of the existence of a level that exists by virtue of itself. We don't exist by virtue of ourselves, but we do experience that we exist by virtue of ourselves. And that's a fascinating experience. And who could give us that experience? Only the essence of God. Godly light doesn't experience that. How could it give me something it doesn't experience? It doesn't experience existence by virtue of itself. It's all about revealing its source. Physicality. So let's just finish the paragraph and then we'll stop. I'm sorry it's late. Mailis aguf shel Yehudi, legavi nishmasai, shedafka bay, specifically there, it's still first paragraph, 295, left side. Dafka there, nimsa koich atzmus, power of atzmus. Va'ad, to such an extent, shalosid lovei, and the shaman is minaguf. The true power of the goof will be revealed. The true power of physicality will be revealed. Up there in the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what did he say? I want a dir b'tachteni. I want to be revealed in physicality, because that'll be the most powerful revelation of me. Lochein dafka Mashiach yavi esagula. Therefore, dafka Mashiach, which is both Malchus and the Mashpia, yavi esagula. Hageula v'shleimus shel kol inyanim. The redemption and wholeness of all of reality. Gam shel Moshe Rabbeinu, also Moshe Rabbeinu. David HaMelech reveals in Moshe something that Moshe himself can't reveal. And Moshe asked to be part of that process. Moshe said, I want to be the Geil Achron. I want the Panemius of me to be revealed in Mashiach. Because the Melech can reveal things that I can't. Because the Melech is down there. And I'm, so to speak, up here. When Moshe gets the Torah, where is he? Not in Elam Hazeh. He's up there in the mountain. Not eating, not drinking, not sleeping. Right? Where's David HaMelech? Down here, fighting wars. Right? Ultimately, now David HaMelech didn't build the house, but who builds the house? Shlomo. Comes from David. He's the one who builds a house for God. And he asked the question, how can a house contain you? How can that be? How can I build a space that will contain you? You're beyond space. I said, leave that to me, don't worry. I'll do that part. You just build it. I'll show up in there. And what is it? It's such a fascinating place because it's a place that is in space and beyond space simultaneously. And we'll just mention that in 30 seconds and we'll stop because it's too late. I won't keep you here. Right? The Aron. Because I'll say Aron Eina Min Amida. Right here, the two sides. The Mishkan, it was 10 amos from here to here, 5 meters. In the base of Mikdash, it was 20 amos, 10 meters. Okay, so how wide was this? 1.5 amos, right? Okay, an am is about 0.5 meter. Right? So that's 3/4 of a meter wide. Okay, so if we're talking 10 meters, so from here to here is 5. Is 5. Sorry, that's not the base of Mikdash. 10 meters across. So from here to here is 5 meters. Right? Okay, now this is 3/4 of a meter. So let's just call it a meter, just to make it easy. So it should be 4.5 to there and 4.5 to there, and a meter in between. But if you measured from the sides of the Aron to the wall, how far was it? 5 meters. How can that be? It's taking up space. And it's taking up a very specific space. If it's not 1.5 by 1.5 by 2.5, 1.5 wide, 2.5 long, and 1.5 high, then it would take up space. But if it's exactly those measurements, which is what the Torah says it has to be, it doesn't take up space. But it's in space. And if you walk into it, don't walk into it because it's in Kodesh HaKadoshim and you'll get worse than a bruise. But were you to walk into it, you'd get a bruise. Right? It's there. It's taking up space. But it's not taking up space. How can it be in space and not be in space? Oh, because it's coming from a place that's beyond space, that's so beyond space, as if it were coming from infinity, it couldn't be revealed in finite. And if it's revealed in finite, then it has to be finite. It's coming from a place beyond infinite and beyond finite, so it can be both simultaneously. It can be in space and beyond space at the same time. How do you do that? Well, if you're coming from a place that's so far beyond space that it's not even limited by being beyond space. Anything beyond space is limited. What? Can't be in space. It's beyond space. No. God's not limited by beyond space or space. He can be in space and beyond space simultaneously. Where's that revealed? The Aron. That's the prototype of all of reality being raised in Moshiach. Space and beyond space simultaneously. That's Atzmos. Infinite and finite, right? God's not infinite. We've talked about that. God's not infinite. Godly light is infinite, but God's not infinite. He's beyond infinite. So he can be revealed in finite. But he can also be revealed in finite in such a way he's not limited by finite. So how can he be finite and not finite at the same time? Well, Aron Ein Min Amida. It's there, takes up space, but doesn't take up space. Only God can do that. Only Atzmos can do that. Okay. Chaim.
Yeah.